Someone asked me earlier, she said, well, you know, if everything is passing and we have no time, then why sit and do nothing? Why don't you try to do as much as possible? So like, you know, you can get, I don't know, as much as life in before you die. Why just sit there and, you know, do something? And she was so convincing, I agreed. We should do something. Quickly. Do nothing. The question behind that, though, is what's the best way to be happy? I mean, that's really where the question is coming from. Like, how can I really be happy? Like, being really alive. I mean, the thought is, if we're really alive, then, you know, doing a lot is for the sake of feeling alive, right? And hopefully that feeling aliveness will give us some sense of fulfillment and happiness. So the common view is, you know, the more you do, right, the more fulfilled and happy you will be. So the question behind the question was how to be happy. So I agree upon, you know, the basic question. But then the disagreement is how to arrive there, like how to find the path to true happiness. And someone asked later, a little bit later, how do people end up doing this? Meditation. How do you end up here anyway? I don't know. I mean, I'm always amazed that people come at all. And I'm always convinced after a retreat, it must be because of the food. Right? Which now after dinner you agree with me. No doubt. Right? Better than any restaurant. But how do we get here? And often I think it's from trial and error. It's from trial and error. Meaning what? You tried certain, you made certain attempts at achieving happiness, and some worked, some didn't work, but most of them didn't last, even if they did work, so you had to keep trying. Meaning that activity of do more, do more, do more. You know, hoping that I'll find it. Maybe this will work. And how often, how many do you have to go through until you have to say, well, there has to be another way. And I related it to the Buddha's, what came to mind was the Buddha's life, where he spent the first 29 years doing what we hope to do, what most people hope to do, which is live a life of pleasure. And that pleasure and comfort and wealth and, you know, whatever, fame, sex, all the things that we glorify, will do it. Meaning what? Will give me real fulfillment and happiness. But he saw, it took him 29 years to realize that this is not working. It's just not working. So I'll have to try something else. But most of us feel like, if I can only get in the palace, give me a chance, it'll work. Okay? Like, I'll make it work. For me, it'll work. You know? Maybe for the Buddha not, but for me it will. You know, they do I've done like, long-term interviews with lottery winners. And there's documentaries on this. And it's pretty much solid evidence that a year later, they either are at the same level of happiness that they were before, or way worse. But we just, I'll be different. It'll be different for me. That's what's called a closed circle. And tonight I want to talk about the Zen circle. Now, if we can put in our mind a Zen circle, the difference between a Zen circle and a non-Zen circle is that a non-Zen circle is a closed circle, and a Zen circle is an open circle, or a broken circle. At some point, the closed circuit of going around the same, patterns broke open, right? That's the Zen circle, is that it opened up. Have you ever seen a closed Zen circle? No, right? It's not, it has to be imperfect. That's the key, is that it's imperfect. It's a not perfect circle, a broken circle, which is the truth of dukkha, okay? Like the Buddha experienced dukkha, and it broke his heart, okay? It broke that circle. The closed circle suddenly became open, and there was an out, we say. There was an opportunity to get out of it. And that's where we actually have to open to dukkha. Dukkha, the reason it's a noble truth, it's the first noble truth, is because it will open the circle. That is the point. Suffering can either be like a selfish, why me, circle around, let me find another, maybe this will work this time, or it can break the pattern. The Dharma will help us regard dukkha as that which will open the circle. That is the point of suffering. Suffering is not in vain if you work with it, if you practice with it, if you take it as your path. But if you see it as your obstacle, it's just a closed circle. Keep going around trying the same solutions with different flavors. Try to get as much in life as possible before you die. Dogen called it the circle of the way. And he has a paragraph where he expressed this. The circle is really a central metaphor, not only in Zen, but in the Dharma as a whole. The wheel of the Dharma, is the circle. The moon is the symbol for the enlightened mind. The full moon. And the wonderful thing about these metaphors is that they're not stuck. Believe me, the moon waxes and wanes. It changes shape, even as you look at it. And if you don't see it changing shape, it's because you are not looking long enough. It's a mountain walking. It's a moon walking. The moon is walking all the time. The moon is changing shape. That perfect circle is never perfect. It's always changing. Right? And that's the dynamism of the moon. And that's why it's the central symbol in Zen of enlightenment, because it's not a fixed moon. It's never full. It's always filling and diminishing, filling and diminishing. It's never just there. Your enlightened mind is never just fully realized. You're always realizing and, breaking down. Dukkha is your way. There's no other way. If you're alive, you're going to experience, the trials of being alive. Birth is hard. I don't remember. But I've seen babies cry on the way out.
Do the
And oh yeah. Of course. Yeah, true. But for the whole cycle of life, it starts with the baby, you know, the mother definitely. But for the one individual, starts, birth is difficult, death is difficult. How many good deaths are there? 1 in a million. That's winning a lottery. Good death. Right? Ask any doctor who's been working in, you know, a hospital. How many like pleasant or mindful deaths are there? Most people are just flailing or crazy, or they're just unconscious, but not, you know, letting go. No. Death is definitely dukkha. It's a big challenge. And then, of course, there's aging and sickness. So take your pick. You'll experience them all. How do they mature us? Right? How do they become our path? I'm not going to rose tint it to say, how do I make it my best friend? No, give me a break. Okay, but how do I make it not my enemy? That's the difference. I don't need to love it. And I don't even need to like it. Okay? But can I accept it as here to stay? Right? And changing, ever changing. That's the circle of the way. Here's how Dogen writes about it. On the great road of the Buddha ancestors, you know? I love the way they, it's just, you're on the road of the Buddha ancestors. There's always unsurpassable practice, continuous and sustained, right? When you're on the path meaning it's continuous. It includes everything, everything. Okay, that's the circle. The circle is vast. And when I say it's an open circle or a broken circle, not only does it, you know, allow you an out from the patterns you've been thinking all the time of like, this is my way, but it also allows new things in. You see, the circle, when it's open, it allows, you know, the garbage out and it allows the insight in. Okay? So that's the beauty of this open circle. And for it to be continuous practice, it means you're always going to be meeting new conditions that you need to let into that circle. You need to have the curiosity, you need to have the commitment, okay, and determination, and the faith that this too can be my practice. Great faith, right? Great determination. And great doubt, meaning, like, am I sure about myself? Like, I thought I couldn't include this, but maybe I can. You know, maybe I can. Maybe I can include being sick, getting old, and dying. Maybe I can include failure and success. Maybe I can include fear and anxiety. Maybe I can include pain and self-doubt. Maybe I can include all that into this circle. The circle is vast and unbroken. Unbroken meaning continuous. My practice is unbroken. My heart is open. It forms the circle of the way, says Dogen, and is never cut off, meaning it's always open. Between aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana, there is not a moment's gap. That's revolutionary in Dogen's thought, where he doesn't see it as like a kind of a stepladder up into enlightenment, but he says, between aspiration, like I want to be enlightened, I'm aspiring for enlightenment, I want to be free and happy. That's my aspiration. I want to harm no more and only help. That's my aspiration. I want a heart of compassion and kindness. That's my aspiration. I want to be less selfish and more giving. Aspiration. Why not? Okay, that's my aspiration. But that's where we start. He says between aspiration, practice, meaning what do I do about that? I can't just like have these lovely intentions. How do I practice them moment by moment? And how is my meditation part of that? Well, this is what I tried to share with the person who asked me, like, why not just do as much as possible? Because if you're not aware of how your mind is always going around the same circle, the closed circle of attachment and aversion, okay, of doubt and criticism and judgment and negative thoughts and all that, self-cherishing it's called. If I'm not aware of all my patterns that are basically closing me down and keeping me in a closed circle, even if I grab and I get all that goodness, that fun and enjoyment, my mind is still going to be on that, on that same closed circle track. So the meditation allows you to observe that and see, even when you've got everything for you, like a retreat, your mind still gravitates to this same, cycle. And if you don't fully recognize that, it doesn't matter how much good you have in your life, you will still feel like something's missing. And that is the essence of dukkha, is the sense of it's not enough, it's not enough, it's never enough. And to break that circle of thought, that habitual craving, okay, which is the source of dukkha, is that need. That's the second truth. You open it up and say, okay, I'm going to let the good in. I'm going to let the good in. I'm not going to force it in. I'm just going to open it, and it'll come in naturally. Like a vacuum. Just open it up. And what do you find? Well, look around. Life. Your experience is full and complete at every moment. If you open that circle and look, if you let it in, that's the Zen circle. This being so, between aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana, there is not a moment's gap. Okay? Even just to wish to be free is an expression of freedom. Okay? It's an expression, a fully realized expression of freedom. Okay? There's not a moment's gap. You're not trying to become someone you're not. You're trying to open up to who and what you already are. And you do that by just beginner's mind. Open up that circle and ask the question, that great doubt, am I really who I think I am? Is this all there is? Maybe there's more. Maybe there's more. How do I know? Okay? The practice is not relying on your ideas, but rather is touching ground, is touching base with what is. It's so simple that we miss it all the time. We think that insight and enlightenment must be this incredible idea, that it must suddenly awaken me to some beautiful insight, that suddenly I'll be able to speak the truth. Huh? So here's what Pablo Neruda, I want to get back to him. Back to his poem that I mentioned. If I can find it. Is there?
I think right. Oh
no. No, it's over here. My pages are all mixed up, but that's okay. It's right here in front of me. That is so typical. It's right in front of me. All right, let that be an example for you. Right? Poetry arrived to look for me. I don't know. I don't know where it came from winter or river. I don't know how or when. No, there weren't voices. There weren't words or silence. If you open up Where does it come from? Where does the goodness, where does the beauty, where does the joy come from? Why is it that, one person can look at the view and just feel like that deep silence? That would be wrong even to call silence. And someone else just looks at it and is thinking about how much work they have to do. Why is it you're standing in front of the same view? Why is it one person has a difficulty, faces a situation, and there's a lot of compassion that awakens in the heart, and someone else just feels fear and anger? Why is that? Where does it come from? This is the poem. We need that silent faith, that trust in your own mind, the trust in life and in the world, that if you open up, you know what? Yeah, in the end you probably will die. But along the way, along the way, there may be grace. Right? Poetry may visit you. From where or when, you don't know. Was it from the view? I don't know. Was it from my situation, my difficulty, my dukkha? I don't know. It wasn't from words, and it wasn't from silence. Where was it from? And does that matter? Our job is to open. The universe's job is to provide. It will. But are you open? Ikkyo put it this way. He said, Ikkyo is another haiku poet. He said, it's logical. If you're not going anywhere, then every road is the right one. Right? That's Zen logic. If you're not going anywhere, then any road is the right one. Right? So if we've already arrived, if every moment is a possibility for realizing that, not a moment, not a gap between the aspiration, practice, enlightenment, and nirvana, that there's that continuous practice, the wheel, the circle of the way. If every moment can fully realize that, then whatever moment you have is probably the right one.
Wasn't this a quote from Winnie the Pooh?
Maybe. Was it a quote from Winnie the Pooh? It's only logical? I have a feeling maybe what was his name, Sebald? Who was the author? Who was Pooh's author? W. Sebald? Miller. Yeah, Miller. Maybe he knew some haiku. Now here's something else I want to continue with Dogen's paragraph. The power of this continuous practice confirms you as well as others. It means your practice affects the entire earth, the entire sky, in all directions. Although not noticed by others or by you, it is so. I love that. That's the real faith. You do your practice, you open your heart, you develop your compassion and kindness, do less harm, be more giving, aspire for the best. Engage dukkha. Do you have to see the difference? No. Because if you do, then you're turning your path as not an arrival, but as a means to an end. And really, we want the path to be for the sake of the path. We want your zazen to be for the sake of your zazen. To realize that the circle of the way is right now. It's not a future destination. And this is why Dogen reminds us. It may not be noticed by others or by you, but it is so. Don't take my word for it. You want to argue with Dogen? Go ahead. I wouldn't, if I were you. Doubt everything and keep practicing. The circle is a wonderful image for us. Okay? While I was eating our wonderful dinner, I was looking at the foods, and actually everything on my plate was a circle. I was like, wow, there's carrots and lentils and chickpeas and all this stuff. I'm like, it's all circles. And that's what I do when I'm eating my food. I'm finding like circles of the way on my plate. But it was endless. And then I realized, everything that grows on this planet is circular, right? You cut a tree open and you see the circular rings. I mean, it's all circles everywhere you go. It's circles, okay? You go down to a cellular level. I mean, every cell is a circle, right? You look at it and it's a circle, and it opens in another circle, and maybe it piles into a line, but everything broken down ends up in circles. This is a circle of the way, right? Life is based on circles. Okay, existence is a circle. Circles tend to calm us. They make us feel better. Imagine if the moon or the sun were a square. Like, it just wouldn't work. Okay? Or the sky were rectangular. I don't know. But it just doesn't work. Everything that makes us feel at peace and expansive has a curve to it. And that's the circle of the way. Even the way you see, your irises, your pupils, they are circles. Widening and, narrowing. Everything that we are. That's the circle of the way. It's not just a belief. It's not just the moon. And speaking of the moon, I want to mention the moon. Dogen writes in another place about the moon, which is the, as I mentioned, the main symbol in Zen of enlightenment. He said, even if you say, he has a whole chapter on what's called the moon, on the moon. And he said, even if you say there was a moon last night, the moon you see tonight is not last night's moon. You should thoroughly study that tonight's moon, from beginning to end, is tonight's moon. Although there is a moon, it is neither new nor old, because moon is moon. Thus saith the great Zen master. These statements are so, obvious. Okay? But we tend to see, when we think continuous practice, we think continuous from past, present, future. And when they talk about continuous, when Dogen and the great masters talk about continuous practice, it's not continuous through past, present, future, because past and future are imagination. Okay? It's continuous, one present, one present, one present. It's continuous that it includes all parts of your present. It includes everything in your present, at all present moments that you may experience. Okay? And that's why he says in that other part that it affects every part of the earth. Right? It continues from you everywhere. That's the continuous practice. And that will invigorate and give your practice a serious weight and importance. Because it continues not just from your life to your life and everything in your life, but everything outside of your life. That's the real continuation. The continuous practice is from you to the world. And that's pretty amazing. Even if it's not realized by you, as he said. And then he said, round and crescent are the cycles of coming and going. The moons do and do not come and go. They are free, creating wind and stream. The moons are as they are. What are we looking for? What are we looking for? And this brings us back to that original question. The original question was, if I'm going to, if life is very limited and short, and I really don't know how short, why don't I get as much out of it as possible? And this last statement, the moons are as they are. If we don't realize things as they are, just life as it is, but rather I'm filtering everything through my idea, and my ideas of what they are, that closed circle, instead of opening to just, life as it is. If I'm in a place of taking rather than receiving. So the question was, why not take life? Grab it and take as much as you can before you can't. That's simply reinforcing what's called greed. It's reinforcing greed. How do we flip that? How do we open that so that greed becomes generosity? How do I do that? Okay. That's seeing things as they are. The moon is as it is. Right? Always changing, ungraspable. Okay? Ungraspable. We are here to transform our minds, our thinking minds, and to open up to our big, aware minds. And there's a continuous practice between those two parts. Okay? By opening up to the greatness of what you are, you won't always feel the need to fill your hole with more stuff, whatever that stuff is. But it's only by opening up and opening the circle of your mind to then receive the world as it is. And you receive the world as it is by patiently sitting with it and observing. You see the moons are as the moons are. Crescent, full. My mind is as my mind is. You are as you are. And as the moon is, as you are the moon, and as the moon always changes, so do you. And that keeps me looking. Because by observing the moon, I'm observing change. And if I'm always seeing change, then there's always something to pay attention to. It's always new. And if it's always new, life is rich, interesting, worth paying attention to. And that's why we sit and do nothing. In traditional Zen art, there's an aesthetic called wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is a term that's applied to traditional arts in Japan. And wabi connotes a kind of a solitude, a suchness, one of a kind. It's the uniqueness of the object. It's the opposite of industrial design. It's unique individual design. It's like a raku bowl where they make one and it comes out different from the next one. It's unique. It's different. Handmade. Okay? It's a celebration and a real honoring of the uniqueness of each individual. That's the wabi. But at the same time, since it's unique and different, it's also lonely. Okay? It's also lonely. It's not just great to be different. It's also lonely. And wabi acknowledges that. It acknowledges that to be different and to stand apart from society and to not just be convinced by all of these deceptions is sometimes a lonely place. That's wabi. It exists in things and it exists as a spiritual approach for people. And sabi means withered, the beauty that comes with age. The beauty that comes from age, wabi-sabi. It means that if you're going to choose between an object made of wood or one made of plastic, you definitely go for the wood. Why? Because in 10 years the wood will look even better and the plastic will need to be replaced, which is what we do. Whereas sabi is saying, there's a grace and a beauty that comes from the cracks in the wood or the clay that comes from age, from the chipping paint and the flaking and instead of wanting to always having it look new and shiny and, seeing age as enemy, you see age as beauty. That's the sabi. Okay? And that's why a lot of the traditional Zen arts are using traditional materials, old materials that age beautifully. Can we apply the aesthetic of wabi-sabi to this body? To this mind? There's no insight in the Dharma that does not come with corresponding dukkha. The beauty of sabi comes with the decline in age. And the uniqueness of wabi comes with the loneliness. That's the circle. Okay, that's the continuous practice of it all being connected. That is what Dogen called the circle of the way. Our goal, our challenge, and our effort should be simply to practice moment by moment. Open your heart and accept yourself and life as it is. The moon as the moon.